What's up, y'all? It's your girl, the Kayla B, and we are back with another tech drop. And I really am excited about this video today because we're going to hop into 5 of my tips that I recommend for if you are hopping into a sales interview. This will be for anybody who is new to sales, people who may be switching their jobs that are currently in sales, and more importantly, if you are going into any industry for sales, not only tech sales. I still feel like these are 5 very valuable tips that can help you along the way. Before we get started, y'all, I do want to send a really huge shout out to HubSpot because once again, they are back and they have sponsored this video. So thanks to HubSpot, we now have 100 sales questions that you can ask in an interview. Something that I really like about these templates is the fact that they have different sections in them. So when we go ahead and open those up, you'll be able to see. But for right now, go ahead and download those 100 free sales questions templates that's linked in my description below, so that if you're going to be following along with this video, you can have it right on your desktop as I show you guys on my screen. A lot of people message me every day and they're really trying to get and land those positions once they complete boot camps like Course Careers, which you can find in my description below as well, and other boot camps that I typically recommend. That one's just more specifically for sales. The other boot camps are for just tech in general. So whether that is the time and resources that you've already invested into the course, take that same energy and put it back into yourself, because that's what's going to come back tenfold, is nailing and selling yourself in that sales interview. So if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and take a look and hop in. So in this segment, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 5 key things that I think are really important to get your sales career really on the go and nail those interviews. Whether you're entry level, may have had some experience and you're just struggling with the current job market, be sure to stay tuned because these tips will definitely help you along the way. The first thing that I really like to dive into before we talk about any strategies or tips for an interview is, 1, your mindset and your confidence. Why is your mindset and your confidence so important? Because how you show up, how you present yourself, and how you deliver and articulate your value is extremely important in an interview. In my personal opinion, the goal of an interview, especially within sales, is to prove and demonstrate that you have the capability to sell products and solutions to others. But I like to peel back on the word sell because I look at myself as a trusted advisor. So what does that mean? I want to be able to show up confidently when I have to sell or prescribe a solution to a customer. They're coming to me as a very special expert at a particular solution that can solve a particular business challenge. So the more that I am well versed in that, the more knowledge that I have and education that I've taken the time to invest in myself, I can show up in that way. So maybe you're not at the point where you're selling solutions yet and you need that extra boost of confidence. Here are some things that I really recommend that can help with your confidence. Like I mentioned just before, being an expert, knowing yourself and your value inside out is really key to being able to articulate it and demonstrate it during an interview. So, for example, if I know that I went 150% over my quota for 4 months consistently, I should already have that written down somewhere. I should be very familiar with my statistics, the KPIs that I've produced. And if you are not someone who has that experience yet, you're fresh into the game, what you need to do is figure out ways to tie in your previous experience into current questions that apply and show the transferable skills are applicable to this new sales role. Most importantly, you got to work on yourself. Working on yourself is something I always recommend. If you watch any of my videos, I'm very focused on mental health, prioritizing yourself and putting your mental at a forefront. And the reason is because it shows up with us everywhere we go, right? So if people are not receiving us well, if we're grouchy, grumpy, tired, if we're not really on our best A game, we probably won't show up as such. So being able to really dive into who you are, understanding the value that you possess, not looking past or looking into any of your previous mistakes, holding those barriers against you mentally, I feel are very keen ways to build your confidence, as well as studying the company, looking into additional things that may just help you articulate yourself more. But most importantly, it's about knowing yourself, knowing that you're worth the position you're applying for, and knowing how to show up and articulate your value. So now that we've understood our confidence, we want to move in and we want to be ready for the interview. So the first step that I tell people to take before preparing any interview questions, once again, is to take some notes and better understand the company that you are applying to. A lot of people overlook this basic step, but it is really crucial. Some questions that you may want to ask yourself are, do you know the CEO's name of the company you're applying to? Are you familiar with any latest news that may be in the, news? Were they recently breached for security? Are there things going on internally that you should know about? Are you applying for jobs but don't know if they're on a budget freeze internally? Understanding any latest news that is very relevant to that company is important. When I say latest news, think about sitting down maybe on CNBC the day before your interview and catching up on their market cap, their stock, how they're doing in the financial market, as well as what their future plans may be or any recent news associated with those types of information. Outside of that, I think that it is really important, like I said, to know the CEO, but mostly important when it comes to the company to know two things. The company's mission, what are they out here trying to do or accomplish every day, and does that fit with your personal brand as an individual? Are there things that you may value that align with that you can tie in to your interview questions? And a company culture, understanding what that company's culture is like. Are there mottos or slogans that they live by? For example, the company that I work at is very big on health and wellness and mind. So that directly aligns with the type of individual I am, and being and feeling comfortable in the work environment that you're looking to place yourself in is very key for you being able to take that next step of success and fulfill whatever goals or KPIs that you're going to be tasked with in your role on a day-to-day basis. It's super important that you feel comfortable, you feel like you're in a diverse environment if you are maybe a minority in this space, but you want to feel like you're showing up every day to a company that values what you value, your ethics, your morals, your mentality, and most importantly, the culture that you embody. I would say that these are some really, really great things to prep when it comes to the company. Some other things that you may want to prep if you are not aware before you move into the questions is learn the STAR method technique. STAR, standing for situation, task, action, and results or response. Just varies depending on who's talking about it. But I like to say results. The reason I like to say results is because I can tie that into a quantitative value of something that I have produced or done throughout my sales career. All right, so once you have the STAR method on lock and you understand how that process works, you want to just have some pre-questions thought out and accomplished, right? You want to take the time to go through a whole bunch of sales questions, which is why the HubSpot 100 questions that we're about to dive into is perfect. These sales interview questions will not only break down different parts of the interview for you, they have different types of questions in there, and they're all broken down by section. So if you're somebody that's looking to really fine-tune your skill set around answering specific questions and you feel like you have certain ones mastered, or if you're new, it's a great way to prioritize yourself and where you may need to work on more and the questions that come to you more naturally. So if you're ready, go ahead and pull up this HubSpot document. As you can see, baby, we are good to go. So let's go ahead and hop right in to these questions and dive in and see how I would answer them or how I'd recommend that you progress in your sales interview and the types of answers that you should be looking to deliver. All right, so what I thought would be really cool for this third section here is to be able to display 3 questions and my thought process and deduction around how I would recommend someone answering them, along with any advice that I may have, because I've answered these questions time and time again throughout the many interviews that I've done. If I can just share a tidbit, before we dive into these, I want everybody to just kind of take a deep breath. If you are studying for an interview, you're probably a few days away, you're probably a little tense, and what I can assure you is showing up relaxed in your calm, cool, and collective state is really what's going to help you to seem very confident in yourself. So if you have any anxiety, we want to throw that out the window before we hop into these questions. Take a deep breath, center yourself, and get ready to show up as your best self. All right, so when we hear the question, which is a really popular question, tell me about a time you failed in your career, what happened, and what did you learn? So if we want to go back and tie in the STAR method, we want to break the question down into multiple sections. So there are multiple questions that have been asked. So we want to tell me about a time where you failed in your career. That's one part of the question. What happened? That's another part. And what did you learn? So as you can see, the STAR framework kind of breaks it down the same way the question is being asked. Tell me about a time you failed in your career. That is the situation. So the S part, STAR. The task. What happened? So between task and action, you want to say what happened. What task did you put in place to accomplish that? And what actions did you take once you put those tasks in place to achieve the result, which is then tied back into what did you learn, right? So in your result, you not only want to demonstrate the qualitative reasons or things that you were able to bring in, but you really want to tie in those quantitative values, like I was saying. So it's a very different statement for me to say, a time that I failed in my career was when I completely forgot to email someone back, and I was overwhelmed with my pipeline, and I completely missed a customer sending me an email, and I was forced or tasked with figuring out a way to reopen that communication, and I had to take specific actions, right? So this is just me walking through an example. This is not how I would more specifically just answer the question on the fly. But what did I learn? What I really want to highlight of the what did I learn part is that I learned that I should be more prompt. I should maybe put in an organizational tool or cadence around my marketing so that I don't forget to go in and follow up with customers, because if it's manual, it's pretty difficult. So I learned to put in processes. I learned to put in some type of cadence or marketing structure in my prospecting efforts that could really help me to what? What we're trying to do is show the value. So now I've shown that I had a problem. I was forthcoming about my problem, but I also realized, okay, something needs to change. So I then put in a task, which was, okay, I need to respond to this customer. The action and the thought process behind it was I should probably be empathetic. I should probably reach out and apologize or figure out a way to explain to this customer why it's taken me X amount of time to get back. And more importantly, I need to solve this problem so this doesn't occur again. And I can demonstrate to this employer that I'm human, I may make mistakes, but what I'm really good at is strategizing and operationalizing my pipeline and the way that I communicate and streamline that effectiveness with my customers. What I really would do here as well is I would tie in, like I said, a very quantitative number here. So let's say that I put in a cadence or a marketing play in place. What I would then follow up and finish and tie it into is the value that I was able to receive, or what I noticed once I implemented that process was that I had X amount more customers responding to me because I was able to more frequently communicate with them, putting a 3-step cadence in place and not tracking this manual on some Excel sheets. It took a little bit of organization. It took a little bit of thought process, but being strategic, I was able to find a solution to a challenge. Really important, you want to highlight that, because that's what we should get up and do every day as tech sellers. We are getting up and we are solving business challenges that many businesses have, and we have to be prompt, we have to organize, we have to build effective pipeline, and we have to make sure we have measures in place on our end to be able to not only send that initial email or send that initial sales LinkedIn in-mail, but how do we follow up? How do we track the progress? Can we see if those people answered it? Did we run some A/B testing to get more refined at those processes and really accelerate? All right, so if you are ready to really go answer those tough questions, let's hop into something that's just a little bit more easy for you to understand. So this one's pretty simple. Walk me through your sales experience thus far. I love this question. And the reason I said it's simple is because that's what most people think. They start to go on and they'll just start to ramble on their whole career. But once again, we want to take that STAR method, and although we can't really apply it to this exact situation, we don't have a situation task, ask, and response. What we do want to really be mindful of here is that we are trying to show the result and the value of our sales career. So I want to tell you about it thus far, but I'm looking to highlight my wins. I don't want to just say, I've worked at X company, then I went here, had a great time, it was fun. That's all cool, and you should probably tie that in some way. But what your interviewer is probably looking to understand is, how did you perform so far in your sales role? So what I like to say is you want to show the natural progression of growth here, how you continuously keep on building, how you continuously keep on becoming a better and better and more mature seller along your journey. So if in year one, you started, you were just getting ramped up, that's okay. But did you show improvement by year two? Did you get any promotions? Were you actively number one on your team? Did you crush your quota? Here is where you really want to show up and shine, right? You really want to show up at the interview poised, confident, and happy about your accomplishments. So if you don't know them, the interviewer definitely won't know them. And this is why it's really important for this step to go ahead and study yourself. Go through your quarters at your previous companies. Write down on pieces of paper what you did quarter after quarter. Another really cool tip to make these parts easy is if you're in a current sales role, I always recommend month to month tracking your own progress. If you don't naturally have your own QBRs at work or monthly business reviews, create them for yourself. Go in, build an Excel sheet, keep it on your personal desktop, and say, this month I had X customer calls. This month I communicated and I had X amount of wins. I generated X amount of opportunities. I closed X amount of deals. This was my territory. This is what I was aligned to. Quick, might take you 5 minutes to 10 minutes a month to complete it. Maybe that was too much, but let's say 30 minutes a month. Even if at 30 minutes a month, you move into your interviews confident, you're able to articulate, and you have one source of truth around what you've actually accomplished in your job, rather than just trying to hop on your old resume and make it all make sense, especially if you've been somewhere a year or two. You typically may not want to revamp your resume while you were internally working at the same place. I think it's a really great method to track your KPIs and your metrics as a seller, and also stay focused on gaining traction towards any goals. It's really hard for us to advance ourselves into a promotion or put ourselves out there for a 3 to 5 year goal plan when it comes to accelerating in our careers if we're not tracking our current progress. So with that being said, we're on our last question that I really want to dive into, and all 3 of these questions are linked to our HubSpot document. So if you're following along, you should be able to pull these questions right up. And the cool part about it is it's in an Excel sheet. So go ahead and copy those questions into another blank Excel sheet and open another tab with your answers, and boom, you're staying organized, and you have one source of truth once again where you can start to build on all your sales questions, especially if you're new, especially if you're interviewing for multiple companies. This may not be a process that you want to repeat over and over again. You just create that Excel, you copy and paste these questions off the 100 free sales questions templates, and then you can build out literally a whole Excel sheet with all the answers to any questions that you may want. You can continuously add to it, you can go back and delete from it, but most importantly, you kind of build a cadence around your interviewing structuring, because it can be extremely time consuming to apply for multiple jobs and interview. But the cool part is when you're in sales interviews pretty much transfer from company to company. They may ask you more specific cultural questions around the company, things that we mentioned before around the mission, culture, how that may fit into you as a seller. But overall, you should be good to go because you have tons of questions that are helping you along your way as you go through multiple rounds of interviews. And you already have the map planned out, you have your answers you thought about, you sat down and you premeditated and you put a lot of thought into where you are, which in turn helps you to show up much more confidently in your interviews. So, final question I really want to talk about is walk me through a time where you had a difficult time finding the decision maker. What questions did you ask? This is a really, really important question because what they're looking to uncover here is how you solve challenges. How are you when you're faced with obstacles? In sales, we know that being tenacious, having persistence, and really being able to push forward, even when you get a no, even when you have to objection handle, and even when you may not be receiving messages or hearing back from customers, you still have to push through, you still have to funnel through. And this is a great way to demonstrate that ability through this question. So we want to then go ahead and apply our STAR method. So STAR, like we mentioned. Boom, walk me through a time where you had a difficult time finding the decision maker. So the challenge or the question around the situation that they are asking you is, how did you get from point A to point B? How did you get this person to respond? How many times did you have to reach out? what was the process and cadence, and what was the result from that? That is how I would process this question. So walk me through a time where you had a difficult time finding the decision maker, and what questions did you ask? So the action that they're looking for you to display here and the result that is going to tie in is what did you ask and what was the response or the success that came from it. So just from personal experience, if I was answering this question, walk me through a time where you had a difficult time finding a decision maker. What I would personally say is it's hard to find decision makers every day. This is not a one-off situation. So what I've done is I've put in a specific process around my pipeline that helps me ensure, let's say, 50% more answers than when I was doing prior to this. How I start off is by doing strategic research. I try to narrow down my prospect based on the persona that they have, based on the internal role that they have, and the goal that I'm looking to solve, or the solution that I'm looking to, help them, the solution that I'm looking to push to the customer that may help them solve a challenge. Perfect example of that is, let's say I'm a seller for Zoom, right? I'm going to be looking for maybe those operational people inside, people who may be having old Cisco systems, PBX phones on their systems. I'm looking for people who need a collaboration tool. So now I'm going to take deductive reasoning and I'm going to go try to find personas that match that. Maybe this is head of operations. Maybe this is somebody who sits in the conference rooms, internally at the office. There's a whole bunch of different people I can reach. So one, increasing my odds of a response comes from increasing my outreach. It typically takes 7 touches in sales to be able to successfully get in contact with somebody. So being able to demonstrate that you have knowledge of these processes through the answering of this question, being able to show how many times you reached out to that customer, what setup did you put in place, and you are having a really hard time finding the decision maker. I've now touched on the strategy that I have for hunting. The second fold of that question is, what questions did you ask? So now we've understand that, okay, Kayla has a great strategy for hunting and finding these prospects, but what does she do when she actually gets in contact with them? My personal style is I like to just set meetings up to learn and better understand the customer's initiatives and business values that they may have in the upcoming quarter, fiscal year, or half. That's just my style, so that's kind of what I would say. I figured out that they may have some type of recent news or challenge that they may be facing internally, and I'm going to tie in and drive that value through the messaging. Example of that is, let's reel back to COVID. If I was trying to reach out to somebody with Zoom, I would reach out and I would articulate, hey, I understand times are hard. We are in a new space right now. There's a challenge around collaborating with teams effectively now that we have a lot of people who need to work remote. No one can come into the office. We believe that our solution will be able to effectively help you to do X, Y, and Z. Great way to show that you understand the solution that you're selling, you understand the customer's challenge, and you have an effective way to do outreach, but you also have a great way of landing and getting a response. Maybe knowing a response rate off the top of your head would be a great quantitative number to throw in there to show the value that these processes have. Y'all, so now that we've wrapped that segment up, let's go ahead and dive into questions that I think are really, really important when you are interviewing to ask the interviewer. Really important here because you want to demonstrate that you are curious about the role. You want to demonstrate that you are very curious on what it will take to be successful in this role. You've now sold yourself and your capabilities to the hiring manager, but it's really important to show that you are self-aware, and how you want to show up in your work environment is highly determined by certain resources and things that be provided to you and your understanding of the role. So here are a few questions that I think it's really important to ask if you are hitting or hopping into a sales interview. The first question being, what is the typical sales cycle like at this company? If you're not aware, a sales cycle is the process and the length that it takes to sell the solution, from beginning of discovery call, finding that solution, having your first interaction with the customer, to getting a signature or a purchase order in front of that customer. After you've completed that, maybe you want to ask, well, what is the deal size? Now that I understand how long it takes to sell these products, how often and how much will I be selling? The deal size means how much is the average cost of someone buying this software contract? Maybe it's $30,000, maybe it's $100,000. And you should be asking this depending on what area you land. So if you are a small middle business, really important to ask, well, in the small and middle business department, how much are the deal sizes? Because you're trying to move up to enterprise. What is the growth in those deal sizes, right? So if you understand where you are, you understand how the deals progress, you understand where you stand in this, right? And if you are a seller, I don't know, any other industry, real estate, cars, who doesn't understand the price of what they are selling, it is extremely important that you ask that question during the interview. You also want to ask about the daily KPIs or quotas that you're entitled to hit. Really important as a seller that you know what you're walking into. There's no way you can be successful if you don't know how to set yourself up for success. And hitting your KPIs or the goals that you're faced with hitting day to day is extremely crucial for you being able to go ahead and crush it. And finally, the last question that I would ask is, what territory will I be managing? Is it territory? Is it industry vertical? How does your business align internally? And how would I be placed in being able to position this solution? Will I be in a state? Will I have a territory like the Southeast or the Northeast or the West Coast? Do I manage a whole territory? Or will I just be aligned to all healthcare accounts? May I just be aligned to all financial accounts? It's really on you to take the initiative to dig deep at this part in the interview, and any uncertainties that you have around the world that may not have been presented in that description. It is your time to shine, honey, and get the answers and information that you personally need to be successful in that role. This is like the bonus round. So number 5, last but not least, here is, in my opinion, the most important and crucial part of a sales interview. It is closing the interview. You are tasked with closing the deal. And why this is important is because I'll literally tell you guys a story. I had a great interview one time, phenomenal. And in the last minute, the interviewer so comfortable with talking to me that they thought I was going to forget this step, which is beautiful because I don't want you to see it coming. I don't want you to feel like I'm on the hunt for it. I want it to naturally flow in. I want it to be part of who I am, and more so demonstrate through my confidence that I am equipped and I know that I deserve this role. So when I ask for the business in terms in an interview, which is what you're trying to do day to day as a tech seller, is ask for the business. So what I'm looking to do is show that transferable skill once again in this way. So I'm always going to ask, well, did you know, based on what I did today, based on what I've shown you, based on the track record of my history, would you, one, suggest me for this position to the hiring manager? Or if you're speaking with a hiring manager, do you feel that I am equipped and the skills that I have displayed are, a fit for this position? I never get off my sales calls without knowing where I stand. And honestly, most of the times I know I got the job because I asked. It's that simple. So with that being said, I really, really hope these tips were super beneficial to you. Wanted to do this in about 30 minutes and we are right at time. So guys, thank you so much for all that you have been doing. Big shout out once again to HubSpot. Those resources are linked down below if you weren't following along. Don't forget to download those. They'll really equip you with all you need for your sales interviews coming up. And to everyone that is graduating from boot camps right now, just want to give you a great word of advice. Stay at it, stay persistent, stay tenacious, get in those recruiters' DMs or LinkedIn mails on LinkedIn, position yourself, network, and really get out there and put yourself on the forefront because you never know who you may land that interview with. And if that's all, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next month again for another deep dive, the tech skills and tech industry. It's been real. Thanks, guys, and thanks for tuning in.